Well, good day, everybody. It's Dr. A back in the garden, and I can hardly wait to share some stories from the garden. Because a garden is not just a bunch of plants. A garden is history, it's what you're doing today, it's beauty. But I tell you what, there are so many cool stories from the garden. One I'm going to share today, I just keep reading about it and I say, this can't be true. And between you and me, it may not be true because we are talking about tales from the garden, and these stories have just come down to us vocally from one generation to another. But one of the plants that we kind of know about, and perhaps we have them in our garden, and they actually see them on the side of the road, is a plant called bachelor's button. It's that lovely blue, kind of lavender flower, and bachelor's button just kind of rolls off the tongue. It's just got to be. It's a fun name, but what the heck? How did it get its name, bachelor's buttons? So I couldn't help but wonder where this name came from, and in fact, the more I researched this name, the more confused I became. So I am going to tell you the story I like best. The public mores of Victorian England dictated that young men and young women not communicate freely. There was often someone who accompanied the young ladies whenever they went out for walks, and certainly for a young man to come up to a young lady and say, introduce himself, that really had to go through channels, as they say. In fact, even in colonial America, a chaperone was expected to accompany proper young ladies during evenings out. Well, I say to you, what was a young man to do? It turns out that young men were actually pretty creative, and that one of the ways a young man could let young ladies know that he was unattached was to place a certain blue flower discreetly into the buttonhole of his jacket. The flower then became known as bachelor's buttons. I can't imagine this habit persisted very long. After all, there seems to be a measure of quixotic desperation in the act. Whether this resulted in any amorous encounters is pure conjecture, but it was surely a more refined process than online dating that we have today. So when you see a bunch of bachelor's buttons, botanically known as Centaurea cyanus, think of those frustrated bachelors out there and think of those young ladies eyeing the buttonholes of the men. It is truly a cool story and one that you can share with everybody. They will look at you rather skeptically and just shrug your shoulders and say, hey, that's the best story I know. And enjoy this plant. By the way, this plant is native to Europe, and as you would expect, but plants have escaped, and they escaped into the New World, that is our world, and they're common roadside plants. They can be easily purchased as plants or seeds, and really they're not overly hardy, perhaps to zone 6, but they can reseed almost anywhere. Even in warmer climates, they should be considered a self-sowing annual. They're excellent for meadow gardens, as long as other aggressive plants are controlled, but they will fill in here and there. In the garden, put at least 3 of these things in, let them flower, and think of all those bachelors out there in colonial America and Victorian England. And think of your teenage son. Have fun, enjoy your bachelor's buttons, and enjoy the story. I will be back for another Tales from the Garden in our next podcast. So for everybody, see you down the garden path. I hope you have enjoyed today's story as much as I've enjoyed sharing it with you. Thank you for listening. For more information and more stories, go to my website, www.alanarmitage.net. If you go to the bookstore, you will see one of my most popular books, Naked Ladies and Forget-Me-Nots, How Plants Get Their Common Names. And another wonderfully popular book is Legends in the Garden. Who in the world is Nellie Stevens? These and other books on the website I think you will enjoy, and I hope you have a chance to take a look at them. Once again, thank you for listening, and I look forward to sharing another story with you next week.